Hi, Bruce Adolphe with episode 13, which is a continuation of the story from episode 12. You may remember, if you saw 12, that David Diamond realized that I had not been showing him the music I was writing because I couldn't stand my lessons with him, so I wrote music and kept it to myself and showed him something else. Well, episode 13 begins a month later, near the end of the second semester. It was time for juries. Juries are the final exams at a music school. For a composer, a jury means that you submit all the scores you composed during the year and then meet with the entire composition faculty to discuss and defend your work. As I walked to a class, I ran into David Diamond. He stopped me and said, "Young Adolphe, there is no need for you to go to your jury. Everyone is very impressed with your progress and professional successes outside of school. The jury is superfluous." I had written 2 well-received music theater pieces for the La Mama Experimental Theater Club that year, which was 1974, so I thought perhaps what he said could be true. I said, "But if I don't show up at all, will I get an A? I need the A to keep my scholarship and my fellowship." "Of course you will keep your A," Diamond assured me. Well, I believed him because I was still a kid. I was about to turn 18 years old, and I wanted to believe him. It felt better than panicking. So I skipped my jury, and a week later I ran into Elliot Carter in the hallway. "Bruce," he said in his gentle voice, "were you sick last week?" "No. Why didn't you show up for your jury?" I became instantly nervous, and I replied, "Mr. Diamond said I didn't need to be there, that I was excused." Elliot Carter said, "Oh, I see. That is unfortunate. You were misinformed. David should not have said that. We had to give you a B because you were not there and hadn't sent any excuse." "But I need the A for my scholarship and my fellowship." Okay, said Carter. "Don't worry. It's not your fault, clearly. Go see Peter Menon and explain what happened. It will be all right." The composer Peter Menon was president of the Juilliard school when I was a student there. An elegant man, he was always perfectly dressed with perfect black and slightly gray newscaster hair that never budged. And with his movie star mustache, Peter Menon was both friendly and formal, and he obviously loved music and was devoted to the school. His office was large, and his desk imposing. But he stood up to shake my hand and smiled affably. It's a shame no one snapped a photo of that moment. We couldn't have looked more different. He with his perfectly cut Italian suit, dark tie, polished shoes, and me in an embroidered Romanian folk dance shirt with billowing sleeves, bell-bottom jeans, and dusty brown boots. But music and Juilliard made us comrades. He said to me, "I hear that you have kind of an issue with your jury. What happened exactly?" I said, "Mr. Diamond told me I was excused from my jury because of my professional work at La Mama, but the rest of the faculty wondered where I was. He didn't tell them this, and they gave me a B. I have a scholarship and a fellowship, and I feel cheated. Mr. Diamond did this to me on purpose." Menon said, "Why would he do that?" But he didn't seem surprised by the story, nor upset with me. I started to answer, but Mr. Menon raised a hand and said, "Never mind explaining. David is difficult. We all know that. He has problems with many people. Problems far worse than these issues." I responded, "Well, then why does he teach here?" Menon said, "It takes all kinds to make a world." "But does he have to be here?" I asked earnestly. Menon closed his eyes and tilted his head to the side. Then he looked blankly at his desk and sighed. "We won't count this jury at all. You will have another jury after the summer vacation, when the faculty are all back, in mid-September. You should submit only the music you wrote this past year, and if all goes well, you'll get your A back and your scholarship and your fellowship. Please have a good time this summer. I hear you will be in Aspen." I said, "Yeah, that's right." As he rose from his chair, Menon said, "All right then, good luck, and see you in the fall." I left New York for Aspen, feeling that my complaint had been heard and would be properly addressed upon my return. Think about it. And with the Vietnam War raging and the fast-developing Watergate scandal, I didn't dwell on my relationship to David Diamond as I traveled to Aspen. After the summer, I returned to New York, determined to get back my scholarship and my fellowship, and, most of all, to switch teachers. There I was again on the 5th floor of Juilliard after a great summer in Aspen, waiting outside a different studio. I was met by Vincent Persichetti, who had been nervously waiting for me. He said, "Bruce, great to see you. Hey, David is wild in there." He was pointing to the studio I was about to enter. Persichetti said, "And I think you should just stay calm, ignore David, and answer the questions from the chairman of the jury. That would be me. So don't worry, okay?" I trusted Persichetti completely, and I followed him into the room. David Diamond was standing on the far side of the room. Sitting at a long table near the entrance to the room were Roger Sessions, Milton Babbitt, Elliot Carter, and Vincent Persichetti. As I walked in, Diamond shouted at me, "You're Haldeman! You're Ehrlichman!" Shocked and completely at a loss, I turned to the panel. David, said Milton Babbitt in a low, somewhat mocking tone, "this is not Watergate. It's just a composition jury." Persichetti spoke up and tried to get it over with quickly. He said, "So, Bruce, we have a hefty stack of scores here from you. We've been looking them over this morning, and we are very impressed with your work from last year. So you will get your A back. Thank you for coming in this morning." "He did not write that music," Diamond screamed. "Someone else wrote that for him. This is a fake, a sham." Milton Babbitt, looking both angry and strangely amused, turned red in the face and whispered something to Persichetti. Elliot Carter actually put his head in his hands. Roger Sessions rolled his eyes in disgust and took out his pipe. Persichetti put a hand on Milton's shoulder and turned to Diamond to say, "That's enough, David. Bruce, you don't need to stay here any longer. Everything is going to be fine. See you around." He opened his eyes widely to indicate that I should go before the Diamond volcano erupted in full force. I left without looking back. Before the heavy red door shut behind me, Persichetti slipped into the hallway right behind me. He said, "Bruce, I'm really sorry this happened. Believe me, it will be taken care of. It's out of your hands." He offered me his hand solemnly, and we shook hands just once and looked each other in the eyes as if taking an oath. He threw up hands in a comical gesture, smiled slightly, and raised his eyebrows as he turned to go back into the studio where the very brief Diamond Gate trial had just occurred. I ran off, still in shock, but also relieved. Perhaps the ordeal was over. Switching from lessons with David Diamond to weekly sessions with Milton Babbitt was like being released from a psychiatric ward run by a megalomaniac and finding myself instead with the actual Wizard of Oz. As forbidding as some of his music may be to general audiences, and also to musicians who have had to rehearse one measure for 25 minutes to play it accurately, the Milton behind the curtain was an entertainer at heart, who seemed to have an endless supply of anecdotes, who knew everybody in the music world and all of their secrets, who understood not only 12-tone combinatoriality, but also jazz music and auto mechanics, and who knew the history of basketball, every rule of baseball, every sort of popular music, showbiz, horse racing, and stand-up comedy. He had high standards for everything and was a wonderful mentor. About 10 years after I got my master's studying with Milton, I received a phone call from Judith Kogan, a harpist and writer who had been my student once. She was writing a book about Juilliard and wondered if I had any stories to share. We talked about a few possibilities, but the tale that she simply had to have in her book, unsurprisingly, was the story I have been telling you right now of my lessons and tribulations with David Diamond. In her book, she told the whole story. The lawyers at Random House, publishing her book, advised Judy to change the names of the characters. And so I became Anton, and David Diamond was only referred to as the teacher, or Anton's teacher. Nothing but the best. The struggle for perfection at the Juilliard School caused a stir in musical circles and apparently came to the attention of David Diamond. Nothing but the best was the name of the book. I continued to teach at Juilliard until 1993, and so I did occasionally cross paths with David Diamond. One day, when I was passing room 504, the door opened and Diamond stepped out in a fury. "Adolphe!" he shouted, barely able to contain his rage. Not only did I stop to hear what he had to say, but the entire hallway full of people froze and looked at him. He faced me and roared his accusation. Diamond said, "That damn book by Kogan is all lies. How could you tell her that absurd story about me? You know that never happened, and you should get her to retract the whole thing. I demand it." At first I was shaken by this surprise attack, but very quickly I realized that this was an extraordinary moment. I said calmly, but loud enough for everyone standing silently in the hallway to hear me, "If the stories are not true, why do you think they are about you? Your name is not mentioned in the book at all, and neither is mine." Diamond had either never realized that, or he had forgotten. He froze and seemed to stare into a void. His eyes narrowed. After a hushed moment, someone in the hallway started to applaud, and soon I found myself surrounded by people applauding, even laughing. Diamond was not well liked, and the essential outline of this whole miserable story was clear from our brief exchange in the hallway. It was finally over. Well, that's the end of episode 13. More to come. To be continued.